I will make the bracha again. Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And thank you, and I am going to share the screen. So here we are. So we're shifting gears a little bit here because we're back at the first chapter of Genesis, and this is we read this verse the last time, and this is talking about God placing the Rakiah, the firmament or the heavens, in the midst of the waters. And Rabbi Bun said, Yehi Rakiah, let there be a Rakiah betoch hamayim. But when he said in the midst of the water, he meant Yehi Rakiah betavech. He meant that the Rakiah should be in exactly the midpoint. And we're going to take a look at the Torah Temimah as to what exactly is the point he was making. Ritzono lomar. So what is he trying to say? Mekuvan ba'emsa, that it is exactly at the midpoint. Uva lefaresh halashon vayavdel, and it's coming to explain the language of vayavdel bein hamayim asher mitachat larakia, the verse that goes on to say, and he divided, right, between the waters which were under the heavens, larakia, uvein hamayim asher me'al larakia, and the waters that were above the heavens. It's in the next verse, pasuk haba. Shekeshiur hachalal shebein harakia lamayim hatachtonim, that the measurement of the empty space between the heavens and the waters that were underneath, kach hashiur shebein harakia lamayim ha'elyonim, so is that area of that space, right? The amount of space between the heavens and the upper waters. We are obviously not talking about geography or is it cosmography here? We are talking about something, I believe, that is spiritual. V'darish betavach or betoch, he's explaining the word betoch kamo betavech, as if it means in the absolute center. V'hine, and in fact, afal pi shekefi demashma miyerushalmi kan, and he says, despite the fact, he's talking about people who might be studying the Yerushalmi that he's quoting here, that here in the Yerushalmi, musavim divrei Rabbi Bun le'inyan acher, despite the fact that if you actually go back and take a look at what Rabbi Bun is referring to when he makes the statement, that he's actually talking about something else, and he's not telling Rabbi Epstein is not telling us what. Aval kafiha mevu'ar mipiresh Rashi, but if you look at Rashi's explanation, as is clarified by Rashi, the Midrash Rabbah kan on Midrash Rabbah, it's of course a different work here at this particular discussing this particular verse. Rosh, I think this is Rosh Perek Daled at the beginning of chapter 4. Hevei habiur kamosha katavnu. His explanation follows what we are talking about here. Vechein hu pashut umevuar, and in this case, it is straight and clarified. It is a clear explanation. Vechama, let's see, vechem meforash, and it's also explained in this way, b'midrash shochar tov. There is a midrash on the book of Psalms that starts off with a quote from Proverbs, which says, a good friend, right? Come on, and it's a midrash, and likewise, Siman Yud Tet on in the section 19. Ve'ien bevi'ur sefer charedim, and he gives you all these references, right? He says, and take a look at the explanation in the sefer charedim, Yerushalmi, to the book to the Talmud Yerushalmi. And in terms of the sefer charedim, here we are. I took a look at it. This is by Rabbi Elazar ben Moshe Azikri. Right, there's his Hebrew word. This is what Hebrew name. This is when he lived. He was a Jewish Kabbalist, poet, and writer. It's just a little bit of background there. Okay. V'karov levadai. And he says, after taking a look at these various references, right, Shahadvarim b'Yerushalmi, that if you actually go back into the Yerushalmi, Chaserim uktuim, he's saying that there are parts missing in the text of the Yerushalmi. Uva ikara, and when it comes down to its main point, mekuvanin livdeirei hamidrash rabba v'shochatov, and they actually are in line with the words of the midrash rabbah and shochatov. So I know this is a technical, in some ways, this is sort of a technical discussion, but on the other hand, one can recognize just the level of the Torah Temimah's scholarship and his knowledge of texts and stuff. And I think what he was doing was anticipating criticism for his explanation here, and he's defending that explanation by these references that he just gave. Let's take a look at the next one. Vayhi mavdil, and let it divide. Vakama, how much? Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, said Rav Acha, the son of Jacob, Kemeleo Nima. Okay. And he says, as much as a hair's breadth. So we'll take a look at what he means by this division or this amount. And I think, in other words, at how far, in other words, to what level of exactness was this division between the upper waters and the Rakiah and the lower waters and the Rakiah? And he's saying to a breadth of a hair. In other words, it was an absolutely precise division. And again, what the nature of that is, I'm thinking, and we'll look at the Torah Temimah in a second, is that this has much more to do with divine justice, that this is actually a metaphor for divine justice. And I've mentioned this before because it talks about how the flood was there to punish the inhabitants of the world when they sinned, and that water clearly is an element by which God either rewards or punishes, that the fact that water can be both a blessing and a curse was something that they meditated on and saw it as an element of the divine acting within the world. And so that the Rakiah, in a sense, is that point at which there's either enough water or too much water, or not enough water, etc. And and the idea that divine justice ultimately is perfect, right? And I think in Psalm 19, they talk about that, how it's perfect. Let me go into the Torah Temimah here. Let me find the place here. Ve'ezo min hachachamim amru shiurim acherim bazeh. And he says there were, in fact, other sages who gave other amounts, gave other measurements regarding this. The kavanat kulam. Okay, so that every single one of them had the same intention, sheba'u l'ramez etzeh, that they actually came to suggest this. In other words, they may have given other amounts of space between the Rakiah and the waters, the above and below, but nevertheless, they all were saying that this dividing line that was the Rakiah was exact. Yes, Judith.
I'm sorry, going back a little bit
That's
about
okay.
divine justice.
Yes.
Okay, that divine justice is just.
Yes.
In some sense, requires us to accept that we don't see the timing or we don't understand the reason.
Correct. That this is a deep point of faith. And I was suggesting it yesterday as well, that when we talk about God being our Elohim, that is the act of belief that we are expressing. Yes, I know. It is a challenge. But on the other hand, the degree to which one can believe this and live one's life on that basis, has all kinds of implications with regards to righteousness. Okay. Should I?
Just one more thing.
Okay,
So,
sure.
and again, it's not in there right now, but
Okay.
so, I mean, personally, I experienced that when after 15 years of trying 3 miscarriages and 4 adoption
Oh
attempts,
gosh, yes.
our 5th adoption attempt ended up with our son being our son.
Yes.
And had any of those others occurred,
Yes.
Grant wouldn't be our son.
Right.
And so in some sense, I saw that as a miracle that
Yes.
this particular child is our son.
Yes.
But
Uh,
there are things also that it's hard to understand, not as bad luck or misfortune, but
yes.
just evil.
I agree. I agree. And part of that, it's I obviously these days, and I mean, this is being recorded, and who knows at what point anybody even is going to look at it again or listen to it again, but that we're going through this section of time with this terrible stuff going on in Israel, and the reports coming back about the utter cruelty that was perpetrated by Hamas, that was practically diabolical. And this, of course, is just one example as you go through human existence over the centuries, etc., and look at the evil that takes place. That ultimately there will be accountability for it. And I think it just goes. It's part of a belief that there is immortality, and that this world is not where ultimate justice, nevertheless, necessarily is going to be seen by us. We're on the lower part of that rakia. We don't see both sides, and we'll pick this up next time we look at the Torah Temimah, and I'll continue with the Torah Temimah's explanation about the fact that our intelligence only goes so far, and that possibly this story about the rakia that's being mentioned here is actually a commentary, about the evil that's in the world and divine justice, etc. And maybe I'm taking it too far, but I really think there is some good support in terms of the Rakiah representing divine justice, especially when in Noah he mentions how the windows of the Rakiah were opened and all this water just poured down onto humanity, causing the flood. And he also talks about, the great depths being opened up as well. So we'll need to stop here, and thank you.